Hello there, welcome gents models and welcome to episode 6 of the Phantom build. In this episode we are going to be messing about with the cockpit. We're going to be painting up all these dials. We've even got our ejector seats here which we paint up, which we add washes to it, sort of water-based washes. We do come along and show a lot with the washes with enamel-based washes as well, to sort of make this, all the detail come out, make it look grubby. And bring all that lovely detail to the foreground, as you can see. So time to just shut up and get painting. Now what I've done is I've just gone over and I've just painted lots and lots of little buttons, you know, just some plain simple white, simple paintbrush, and just plain simply we just sort of paint these tiny little buttons. A little bit fiddly. I know some people do like to maybe get out a cocktail stick, dip the cocktail stick into some white paint and then just dab that down and feel like they get a bit more control. Either method is good either way. Now we come back to our ejector seats just here. Now with these ejector seats, as you can see, I've painted most of the base stuff that is on the lower areas of this, you know, things like seat belts, as I say, we'll paint them later. It's just easy that we kind of get the background stuff done and then do like the stuff that's sticking out. So as you already know, I used Castellan green for our green parts just here. I know you guys like to know what paints I use. We've got a Shubati bone, which I did for these top sort of bone coloured bits at the top. The yellow, I do like this by Citadel. It's Avalon Sunset. It's a nice yellow that isn't too bright. It's kind of a bit of a dirty yellow, and that went nicely on our ejection cords and stuff, which actually only took one coat because we primed it white, which is really nice. And then I've got Evil Sun's Scarlet, which I did some red bits, and those are the bits which, you know, I want to do now. I'll do the seat belts and stuff after. Now to kind of bring this alive a little bit more, we can use things like washes. We'll start off with our first wash. This is Beltan Green. These are nice washes that Citadel does. It's good for hand painting. We do have all these sort of enamel kind of washes and filters behind me, but when it comes to doing tiny little bits of painting, I like to use the Citadel stuff. These washes do work quite well for what we want it to work for, and with this it is just a simple case. There's no real hard work involved. It's just literally kind of like painting. If we can get you in nice and close, it's just basically painting these same areas again but with a wash on it, and you just want to make sure there's a nice amount of wash you put on there. You don't want to put it on too thin, I mean obviously not too thick, and it'll just sort of go into all these nooks and crannies, right? It'll create shadows and just give a bit more interest to our standard base colour, which hopefully you can sort of start to see. And just to quickly sort of show, because it is as easy as that, you just paint it on. It is best though, I mean when we come to areas like this, when we get close to say another colour, right, you want to be careful, right? We don't want it to go over onto our sort of bone type colour here, and then what we also want to do is make sure it dries before we put the wash on for our bone colour just at the top, just there. And then I'm going to do that with all the other different colours, and I'll show you what colours I used. While some of that just dries, I want to sort of show you how to sort of paint the black stripes on our pull cords. Really, you know, I mean, you could use a paintbrush if you want to, but I do find these nice Micron a 005, these kind of nice marker pen type things, really comes in handy. It just gives you a bit more of a steadier, straighter sort of edge to when you pour the when you sort of draw these on. If we sort of just show you just here, if we can just focus, we can just nicely just draw these black lines on here, right? I mean you may have to now and then sort of draw on a bit of scrap piece of paper just to sort of get the ink flowing, right, now and then, because you are painting, you are sort of drawing onto to paint just here. Again, trying to get you to focus. Right, and as you can see, just quite nice and easy just to draw some black lines on. So with all those washes on now, just to quickly sort of let you know, I used Agrax earth shade for our colours that we painted. Bone, whatever that is, bone colour, and then we did for our yellow parts, I just added a bit of Casnadora yellow, whatever that is pronounced, and that just kind of, it just gives it a little bit more life. You can probably see on the pull cords, it kind of just makes it look a little bit dirtier and just kind of a little bit less flat. And as for the red bits, probably not really noticeable, but I did it anyway, which is some crimson, sort of like a nice kind of ready sort of wash to put on top of them. What I'm just doing now, I've got some Death World Forest, right, and this is what I'm doing the all the straps and stuff with, right, and as you can see, this is going to be so much more easier to paint because this is all just raised areas now, and this is why, you know, I did all the washes and stuff on the background stuff first, right, so I haven't got to try and paint underneath and behind these nice sort of straps that we've got just here, and it's just so much more easier to now, you know, paint these up, right, and we can come in with a wash on top of these as well, which I'll be using some sort of sepia type sort of brown colour that we have here from Citadel, and that doesn't quite finish it all. We've got all this black, the black's quite sort of you know, bland. We want to sort of spice that up, but you know, mainly all the colours here will be nicely done, and what you should hopefully end up with is something like this one that we just have here. As you can see, those washes just give it a bit more of a dirtier, sort of more interesting look, right, and hopefully you're liking that. So let's move on with a little bit more. So with a little bit more painting just here, we have this kind of it's almost, it looks like a glass dark but a little bit of a red tinge to it, that little circle just there. Now to achieve that effect, right, we can get out some simple red paint. We've got some Evil Sun's Scarlet just here, and what I'm going to do is just really sort of mix quite a bit of water with this. We want a really sort of transparent mixture, right? We really don't want a lot of coverage to this at all, you know, we're talking less than a milky consistency, right, so that when you paint on our first coat here, well, our only coat, right, it's quite wet, right, so the cool thing is that you'll have a bit of capillary action for it to just kind of go around the edges itself. And hopefully from what you can see from that, you know, it isn't got great coverage. We've watered it down so it's nice and transparent, and it gives that, if you look at the reference photos, it's like black glass but with a tinge of red, and later on we'll gloss that up to kind of bring it out even more, but for now that will be just fine. Now what we want to do now is, because we're going to start doing some weathering with enamels, and because we want these washes or filters, whatever we're going to use, to nicely flow, I'm simply going to now gloss this all up, and what it does as well, it's going to seal in all this work. It's going to be like a save game, save our work, and all we've got to do, this is some floor cleaner, it's Pledge floor cleaner, lots of different names depending where you are in the world. If not, I do like using AK Interactive's Gauzy Agent. It is a bit better than this stuff, but this is nice and cheap, and for this kind of work, you know, we're not spraying the whole model, just a bit of cockpit area, and all we're going to do is start off by spraying on a light misty coat. I mean, when it comes to any kind of spraying, light and misty first all the way around, right, so you hardly even notice that's gone on. You can press down the trigger, just cut to air, it dries it off pretty quickly, and then we can start putting on light coats. Light coats is where, you know, you kind of spray it down nice and light. As soon as it starts looking wet, you want to be moving along somewhere else. right, and just like that, then leave it to dry, and probably 2 light coats should do it. We don't need to go too much, it's just protecting the work. And then we'll leave that to dry for a nice amount of time. Really you want to sort of leave it overnight to dry before you start applying washes on top or any kind of filters, but I'll get back to you when this is all dry. So let's move along with the main washes of this event. We are going to be using the panel line wash Black Knight, which is by Ammo. It is 1611. Now, if this is still a little bit too thick, we want to thin it down, right? We don't want this to be too strong, right? So I'm just getting out odorless turpentine. I mean, Ammo does their own enamel odorless thinners. I find either one doesn't really matter, and what we're going to do is we're going to really thin this down. We don't want too much of this black at all, although it won't matter because you'll see later on how we're going to sort of tidy this up later. But we've got a nice little mixture here. And plain and simply, this is the beauty of this, right? Because we put a gloss coat on, it's going to allow this panel line wash to flow a bit better, go into all the nooks and crannies, show off all the detail, and because we've got that gloss coat for it to flow a bit better, it's not going to stay in all these sort of flat areas where we don't want it. And this is the beauty. What I love about all this lovely resin is that there is so much detail in here, and it all just finally gets revealed when we put a wash on, right? And we just want to slap this sort of all over. I do find it helps with the flow to even just come in and just sort of dip straight into the odorless turpentine and just blast it just all over. Yeah, you don't see anything, but you know, when you sort of, that's a bit too much. When you apply the black, it just helps it flow around that little bit better. Again, we don't want it to be too much like that. That's a bit too much-ish, right? And we don't want, we want that to go all over. Avoid the black areas, right? We are going to apply a different wash to those areas, but hopefully you can sort of see how it just brings all this lovely gorgeous detail to the foreground. It does make it look a little bit grubby and dirtier. It's going to look a little bit too grubby and dirty at first, as you can see just there, but we will tidy it up later. Then what we want to do is a second color, because we can't put it on, we can't put this black on these black areas that we have here because you won't see it, right? So I like to also use again another panel line wash, but we're going to be using a much more lighter color. Right, so what we're going to use, you've got to give these a good shake as well. We've got the 1600 by MIG, which is their light grey panel line wash. Again, same sort of technique. We're going to just nicely, really thin it down, right, to the desired dirtiness, I suppose. I mean, the more you sort of have this panel line wash colour, the dirtier it's going to look. Right, and again we can just refocus. We can take these areas and we can sort of slap this on. As you can see, that is quite pooling up, so I've just dabbed my paintbrush on a kitchen paper towel to make it really sort of just moist, and we should be able to just suck up a lot of this sort of pulled up wash that we just had there. And again, hopefully you can sort of see how it just nicely goes into all them nooks and crannies like so. Even our ejector seats, remember we hadn't quite finished these. Let's get you focusing in. Hadn't quite finished these, but by putting this wash on that we've also made, right, we're going to have this nice light bit of a lighter sort of bringing out all the detail and all the nooks and crannies, as you can see just there, right? And we just want to do this all over all these areas. Let that dry for maybe about 20 minutes. We don't want it to be completely dry because we want to do a bit of a cleanup stage. with all that applied all over now we kind of come to the stage where we want to clean up a bit. I mean, hopefully, you know, with the capillary action having a gloss coat down and the paint flowing, we won't really have much work to do, but you might find that a little bit too grubby. So what we can do is rehydrate this. So we can, if we wanted to, go about it this way. We dip in, nice clean paintbrush, and maybe we've got some dirty walls just here and we don't want that to be too dirty. We can just sort of like feather this in. Right, and as you can see, just touching where those flat areas are, you know, it cleans it up rather well. Right, we've got this sort of flat area just here, and again I'm just sort of coming in, sort of rehydrating. You want to sort of clean your paintbrush as you go along, right, and you can clean up any area that you don't like with this. Right, so you kind of just keep it in those nooks and crannies, and you just keep it exactly where you want it to be. Right, that's the beauty of it, and because we've got the gloss coat down, it's protecting the paintwork as well. We could come along and we could do a sort of a quicker, easy sort of clean up. Getting a cotton wool bud out, we can dip into our odorless turpentine. I like to roll it on a kitchen paper towel, right, so as it's moist, it's not drowned in it. And we could, you know, just do a quick sort of wipe over, right, just a quick wipe over, just so as, sorry you wasn't on camera there, just a quick wipe over, just to sort of get up the areas that are on flat surfaces. As long as we do a quick wipe over, right, we're only sort of going to ever clean up what's on the flat surfaces, but you know, what's in all the nooks and crannies, as long as we don't wipe over it too much, it's going to be left behind. You know, some basic sort of scale modeling principles here, and it just cleans it up. And it's just a case of just going around and just cleaning up all these areas that we want to be a little bit cleaner, just leaving it in the nooks and crannies. And hopefully, as you can see, it just kind of brings out all these panels and everything we've got on here. It sort of, you know, colours in those sort of recessed areas nicely, and just gives it a nice bit more life. So it's just a case of cleaning this up now as much as you sort of want to sort of clean it up and just sort of get that looking all nice and weathered. We do also have our, it might be a little bit hard to see, but all our instrument display panels here, these were really sort of black, and now you can probably, you know, we just rub over this a little bit, you can sort of really sort of make out the detail that's on there. And all that is just black spray on there with gloss, and then, you know, we've got that nice little panel line wash on there, and it just brings out all those details really nice, just as you can see there. So I'm going to get all that cleaned up, and we're getting close to sort of finishing this cockpit. So as you can see, we're now all cleaned up. Just to give you a closer look, you know, once you sort of clean it all up and, you know, tidy things up, it really does sort of bring out all that absolutely gorgeous detail. You might have noticed I whacked on the instrument display panels just here. This is like a sneak peek for the next episode, because sadly we have come to the end of this episode. Next episode, I'm kind of thinking we'll just finish up. There's only a little bit left to do with the whole cockpit area. You know, we're going to be sort of getting out all these sort of films and putting them behind our actual photo etch bit of instrument display panels and showing them off, which should look pretty cool, gluing it all together. And we should be, because there's only a bit left to do there, we should actually be looking at our exhaust, because before we can kind of bring our fuselage halves together and start working on, you know, filling all this lovely gaps that we're going to have with the cockpit, we've got to sort out these exhausts. Now, somebody did say to me that the exhausts that you buy, the resin exhausts, don't quite fit, they're not the right size or something, so I'm not sure what's going to go on there, but we'll work something out. Maybe we do a hybrid with the kit parts and the resin parts or something, I don't know. We're going to take a look at it and get a start on that. But yeah, that's it for this episode, and I'll see you in the next. But as always, until next time, my name is Bob Waldron, this is Jenny Smalls, and I hope you've enjoyed.